Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. It is 2025, January the 12th, and we're here to talk about our top 10 films of 2024. Now, we've seen films all year. We've seen films from Sundance, from Tribeca, from TIFF, from everywhere. And so this is our own collective personal reviews of what we think are the best films of 2024. So I'm going to bring on my co-host here, Lucas and Jorge. What's going on, gentlemen?
What's going on?
What's going on, everyone?
What's up, guys? So just so everybody knows, this is going to be, we haven't talked about it. We none of us, we never do. We always kind of keep it to ourselves. And we're going to be going through our 10 lists, but we're also going to give like honorable mentions. I think five honorable mentions is good enough. You guys good with that?
God almighty, that's 15 movies.
Man, it was a lot of good movies, man. It was a lot of good movies.
Cut your list down to 12.
A lot of good movies, man. I'm gonna be really quick. I'm not gonna describe them. I'm just gonna be like, yeah, that was a really good. But but
So now I
yeah,
have to add 3 movies.
you ain't gotta. I mean, you ain't gotta.
Okay, new 5. New
All
5
right.
honorable mentions.
All right, cool. But not to be real sappy, but me and these gentlemen here, we kind of make up Team JVS, and I honestly it was a really rough year, and emotionally and collectively, if it wasn't for these guys, Team JVS would not be running in any capacity. So I just want to express to them here, guys, if 1,000 people see this or 1,000,000 people see this, like I letting you guys know that they are the heart and soul of Team JVS just as much as me, and I appreciate them going through this list with me because it's an honor to be working with them. But here's the sentiments there. That's enough sappiness. Let's go ahead and get it in as he takes a drink. All right. So what we'll do is, I guess we'll go through our top 10. So we'll start at 10 going down, or you want to go?
No. Start with the honorable mentions
And we
first.
have like 18 honorable mentions we have to get through.
Yeah, we got to get to them. Since you came up with this 5 honorable mentions, give us what are your 5 honorable mentions? See, because we could just go through the honorable mentions and then get the actual list that matters.
Okay.
Not that the honorable mentions don't matter, but again, it's always a year when you have so many films that
It
it's hard
is
to
a
narrow
lot.
it down to 10. But what are your, or we could just do a round robin of honorable mentions. How about that?
Okay. No, that works for me.
Meaning, just 1, 2, or however.
Okay. I'll give you my 5 honorable mentions. So my 5 honorable mentions for this year. First one up is Nickel Boys. Nickel Boys honestly almost broke my top 10 list. Everything about it, like from the way that it was actually filmed, from the way that it emotionally resonated. It was heartbreaking at the same exact time. It was trying to elevate hope at the same time. And I think it was executed very well from someone, like just kind of just trying to convey something on a very deep level. And so that was one of my 5. Next one would be The Brutalist. From a director, this is his first really big film. Best cinematography this year. Definitely amazing performances across the board. I think the only reason why I didn't, get into my top 10 is just really long. Intermission and the process behind it was really long. And it took a lot for me to kind of get through the first time around. And I've only seen it once. But I do recognize it as one of the best films this year. Another one I would say is We Grown Now. We Grown Now hurt my whole heart. But at the same as that time, it was so inspiring. It was well done, amazingly edited. Um, like it was so many different things about We Grown Now that I just really appreciated. And it was one of my honorable mentions I wanted to give up. Bring Them Down, which I don't know if that movie has come out yet, but the basis of it is you got these sheep farmers, and these sheep farmers basically are competing with some other sheep farmers, and the family business is at jeopardy because unfortunately somebody's kind of sabotaged it. And believe it or not, by the end of that film, it gets very bloody, it gets very messy, and it is terrifying. Well acted across the board. Um, yeah, yeah. I thought that was really dope. And then the last one, I think it's a tie for my last one, which was Cuckoo and Long Legs. Cuckoo, I think, was insane conceptually, and I love the performance of it. But Long Legs, I think, probably narrows it out because I think the way that they framed that, the way they shot it, the dynamics of a lot of people really didn't like it. I thought it was masterfully done personally. I actually really loved Long Legs and Cuckoo. But yeah, those are my 5/6. So yeah. All right, who's up next?
Jorge.
Yeah, here we go. I'll jump on it. We'll make mine easy. I gotta grab my list. So this year I did a lot of short films, and I think two short films that stood out for me that it's very rare when you watch a short film and you like it just hits perfectly and you want to see more and more of it. The first one is called Check Please. This one basically just it deals with two Koreans basically that at the end of the day are fighting over like picking up the check, after their meal. And the amount of hilariousness that happens with it, it reminds you almost of like Kung Fu Hustle, only like literally sitting inside of a booth of a restaurant, which I thought was so well shot, so well done. And even at like the very end, when you think the short is over, they just throw like another dig into it, which is, just spectacular. After that, I would go with this movie called Empty Jar. It's actually a Spanish film, but this one was just such a unique concept and so different than anything I've seen. Um, all the actors did a great job on it, and just the whole premise of the movie, without giving too much away with this short, is, there's a soul that's captured inside of a jar, and when you open it, the soul comes out. But that soul can trick you, and the next person who opens that jar, like their soul goes into it, and the person's soul who's in there comes out. And it becomes this crazy love triangle, and it was beautifully done. So, definitely those two would be on my list. The next ones, obviously, Rebel Ridge was one that popped up in my list. This movie, I was not expecting anything from it, and it was just awesome. It was exactly what I needed to watch when I watched it. It's one of those movies where I've actually replayed this one a couple times, and it gets better and better. I thought the acting was done incredibly. All the fights and everything that came from it was just great. And just the whole premise of it. It was, and I hate saying it this way, it was nice like seeing a black actor not be portrayed as this like gangster thug or just like evil, like what like just overpowering person. Like it was the most cool, calm, and collect killer that I have seen in a long time, which for me was like meant so much more, and just how stable he was throughout the whole situations. Um, Other than that, was a film that I saw at the beginning of the year called Books and Drinks. This is a film about this guy who ends up going to the Dominican Republic to sell off some of his father's stuff once he passed away. And this was just like a great little like rom-com that I don't think anyone knows about, and it flew under the radar, which is a shame because this movie I thought did so good, especially when it comes to getting one of those like date night type movies. Like it was just great. Like the people you're supposed to like, you like; people you're supposed to hate, you hate. And in typical rom-com fashion, like it just ends exactly how you want it to. So this one was a great one. And then last but not least, for my final fifth one, Things Will Be Different. This was this is a movie that it dealt with like time looping in such a unique way that I've never dealt with it before. And as soon as I finished seeing it, it was one of those that I kind of clicked it back on and started watching it again because it was just that unique and that different. Definitely something that I haven't seen before. Like, were there little areas that could have been improved in this one? Yes, but this was a film that I think once again went under the radar. And once you kind of get into it and truly understand everything that was happening, it was beautiful. Like it was beautifully done. And this is a movie that literally only has two actors in it. Like it was that simplistic, but so well done. But yeah, I would say those are my five honorable mentions, which I wasn't expecting us to have five. So we'll work out there.
Sorry.
You said it right. 5 honorable mentions. Okay, so because I am still an order person, so my first honorable mention is the only time I've ever put a documentary on my best of anything list, and that is a film called Group Therapy that came out at Tribeca this year. And it was a bunch of comics sitting around and just talking about what makes comedy and how it normally comes from the most tragic, uh, demanding, dramatic moments of your life. I know Tig is in it. I keep on forgetting all the rest of the comedy. There you go. Good poster, because now it reminds me the comics is in it. But like all of them are just talking about their life. It's narrated by Neil Patrick Harris. He's the moderator of the conversation with these comics, and they're doing this in front of a live audience.
Mm.
And they're working out just what it means for them to be comics and the things they had to go through in their life that shapes and forms their comedy. It is it's as close as you're going to get to watching a live therapy session and understanding that pain is what breeds comedy. And some of the funniest moments of it are some of the most heartbreaking stories you will ever hear. So that's the first one on my list is Group Therapy. The second one on my list is Color Book.
Oh
Color Book,
man. Oh
which
no.
again I saw it, and
Mm,
I
mm,
want to
mm.
say I saw this at Sundance also
Sundance. Yeah.
with Will Collette. And this movie, man, this
Mm,
movie's
mm.
a gut punch.
Yep.
As it's just dealing with a father having to now raise his special needs son on his own after his wife passes away. And the whole premise of the film is that he just wants to take his son to a baseball game. And that trek to get to that baseball game is some of the most gut wrenching stuff you're going to see this year. The young actor in it is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
He proves that, just because someone thinks someone may have a learning disability does not mean that they can't give you a performance that will break you. And this movie is amazing, especially if you haven't seen it. That's definitely one you need to check out. My next one is also one of the first movies I saw this year, and this is called In the Summers. I saw this also at Sundance. It stars Renee Perez. It's a semi-autobiography film, and it's just about Hispanic dad who gets to take his daughters only in the summer after leaving his wife. And you get to see over time the progression of the daughters and who, as the daughters become who they are, and how the father has to adapt to it, but also how his life is completely spiraling out of control. This is another one of those films that if you watch it, it can really break you because it literally is all about what it means to be a parent, what it means to be a child, and what happens when those roles flip as you get older. It is such a good film. It was hard not to have it in my top 10 this year, but definitely one to check out. What I'm at number 4. Okay, number 4. This is also I'm always doing films that ain't either released yet or I saw at a film festival. So this one is I saw at TIFF, and I didn't get to see as many films because of situations at TIFF this year. But one of them I saw was On Becoming a Guinea Fowl. And this was a film about a young woman who discovers her uncle dead in the streets as she's on her way to a party.
Oh my god.
And then after discovering him dead in the streets, it now becomes everything the family has to deal with after the fact. We find out that, and I hope I'm not spoiling anything because it's really in the premise of the film. We find out that the uncle has been molesting almost every young girl in his family.
Oh my
And we
god.
see the way the sisters cover it up, or the way family can actually act like things that are horrible that's happening aren't happening. At the same
Mm.
time, we have his wife who's mourning, who happens to be a teenager who he married, and just the way the family judges her. Like this movie was so deep on so many levels, and it was Such an awesome film to watch. Again, I saw this at TIFF this year. I don't even know if this released wide yet. But the last film, goodness gracious, a 5, which I did not plan on having to do. This film just missed my top 10, and that is Juror Number 2. This film here is possibly one of the best crafted courthouse mysteries I've seen in at least the last 10 years. Like, this is Clint Eastwood and Nicholas Hoult at their best. This film is so tense, so intense. I'm sorry, and it grips you from the beginning of it as you get deeper and deeper into the story, and you kind of find out why Juror Number 2 is so important, and the lengths he goes to just to protect his family, but also putting away someone who's completely innocent. It is gut wrenching to watch this film, and for this to possibly be the last film that Clint Eastwood will ever direct or be a part of, this is the type of film that you go out with a bang, and hopefully it may still get some awards love because this film is that good. But that, my goodness, is my 5 honorable mentions. Now we get into the actual list of the top 10 films of 2024. Now, can I preface this real quick? I'm not going to go first. Maybe Sam's going to go first or Jorge's going to go first. And I'm going to say this first, okay? There's going to be a lot of films, possibly on Jorge's list, definitely on Sam's list, that were on my list for the best films of 2023. Because if I saw it in that year, that is the year it goes on my list. So keep that in mind. I'm going to say that because my number 10 film is going to cause that problem. If I saw it in 2024, it is on my list in 2024. That's it. I'm good now.
Okay, I will go first. All right, guys. So, where did I see this film? I saw this film at TIFF, and I honestly, I mean, I looked at the show, you know, over the years here and there. I mean, probably because of Eddie Murphy and other specific amazing talents. But it made my number 10, and I'm talking about Saturday Night. This is basically the story about how the first Saturday Night Live was conducted. Now, the thing about this film is not only is the ensemble fantastic, but a lot of them are good actors, but a lot of people don't necessarily know them. They've seen them from different things, they've known them from different things, but they were never like the lead. Now, the main actor, we've seen him from Steven Spielberg's last film, but everybody else, like you've seen them in passing. But this ensemble killed it. From the comedic side of this to how hectic it was, from the editing of it, it just was so seamless. And to watch it in something, and for context, I saw about 37 films at TIFF, and this was something that caught my eye out of all of them. And I really wanted to watch it again and again. And it was just so engaging, so crazy. But it was just so well done. And it kind of immediately, once I got done with it, I was like, man, I really want to go back and get more on the history behind this and what happens after it. But I think it was just executed perfectly. And I think that every single person that played one of the main comics played it to a T. One of the persons was in the show. I think me and Lucas used to look at Gotham. He played the role of the Riddler, and he was amazing in this. I think he played Chevy Chase's role. But yeah, it was a really good film. That is my number 10 for 2024.
Nice. I will. Mine's gonna be a cartoon movie because that's how I roll. Now my number 10 was The Wild Robot. This film, when I got to see this film, this one was phenomenal, and I wish I would have seen this one earlier than when I actually did. But this is what storytelling is about. This movie is extremely emotional. It's compelling. You get this movie will emotionally get to you if you are a normal human being. I will go with that. Because this movie, just the whole premise of it and how this robot has to take care of, this little animal, and it's heartbreaking how much harder, he has to work and how much more he has to do. And you can kind of take this movie and put it into almost any demographic and it can work. But this one was like a gut wrench one for me. And it's one that, you know, I just you don't expect to be so emotional when you watch, like certain animated movies. I think Inside Out 2 did a good job at that, at like explaining, emotions and things like that. But this one, like the story just breaks you, especially like near the end of it. And it's a beautiful film. So this is one that if you have not seen, I would say go watch it because it is awesome in every single way.
Yes, sir. Lucas, number 10.
Okay. So as I promised, and I live and I deliver on my promises. I saw this movie in 2024. This movie has no distribution yet, and yet and still it made the list because we at JVS have a special relationship with two directors who decided to give us a film,
Oh.
and that film made my top 10. And the name of this film is Push. And this is one of the best horror films that I saw in 2024, as it deals with a pregnant woman who's a real estate agent who's attempting to sell a house. And through the course of her night, she meets this person who pretends to be a client, but his ultimate goal is to come in and kill her. And what makes this film so great, again, the Justin and David who directed this film, um, they're amazing at just dealing with scenery and dealing in confined spaces. In this film, the confined space is a mansion, and you get to see the grounds of the mansion. You get to see the rooms of the mansion. You get to see everything humanly possible. It's used to build the terror that this woman must go through, along with being pregnant at the time and attempting to escape a maniac who gives no reason for what he's doing here other than he's crazy. And that's what makes this film good, because it does not go out of its way to explain the killer to you. The best horror movies are films that say, hey, we don't have to explain this to you. Just get in here and be along with the ride. Once you get in this ride with this film, you will be blown away. This is the best home invasion horror film in the last 20 years. This is a masterful horror movie done by two masterful filmmakers. So, my number 10 film is Push.
Oh man. So I see I heard Jorge over the type. He's like, oh man, I need to see this movie. Yeah, no, it was really good. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, yeah, man. Never mind. I'm shut up. All right, so let's get to number 9 now. So update that. So my number 9 was a film that I think I saw it. I think I did see this at TIFF. Had to have. It was Honora. Honora, for all intents and purposes, in my personal opinion, has the best female-led performance this year. But the way that Honora even started, like it goes from 1 to 1,000, and I don't mean that lightly. When you start going through the journey of Mickey's character and how she's kind of working at a club as an exotic dancer, she meets up with this young guy. He asks her for sexual favors, but it's kind of like you start to kind of rally behind him a little bit because they seem really sweet. He seems so lovable. He seems like he got a rich family, and they just fall in love, or they fall in lust, whatever your perception of it is. But either way, every person they interact with from that point after their connection builds is affected, and you see it throughout this whole entire film. And it's just the performances, the angling, the editing, everything about this. It, to me, this is one of the best films this year. I don't even know how to really describe it. It's more so like an experience. You kind of have to go through the story, and you honestly wouldn't believe some of the things that happen in it. The small little subtle moments that are either one, the perception of it would seem really highly sexual and over the top, but then they make it the most darkly humor moments at the same time. It's so well done. So for me, my number 9 is Honora, definitely.
Well, my number 9 is a little bit different than that one. My number 9 is a little bit more of a love tale. My number 9 is We Live in Time. Um, this movie, and I think for me, just hit me very differently due to like, my own life circumstances. But this movie follows like Andrew Garfield and just him and Florence Pugh and just their it's like a non-linear story of their relationship. And he is kind of like this IT guy. She is this, amazing chef. And obviously she gets caught up. I have to say caught up, that's terrible. She basically gets diagnosed with cancer, and you kind of see them going through this struggle and through this journey. Um, this movie was super just very accurately done. And I will say, in terms of the chemistry that you see between Andrew Garfield and Florence, like there was so much love there, like you could feel that. But there were also scenes where you just see the confusion of Andrew's character, towards his wife, and vice versa. Like the wife making certain decisions that Andrew doesn't agree with. um but this movie is just it came for me during the year at the right time that I needed to see it. And it was just one of these films that I wasn't I came into it somewhat blind, but once I saw it was just like it was poetry in motion for me. Being able to just see their relationship going through all their issues, and then even how the movie ends was just beautifully done. This is one of those films that you know I only watched once, and I think I can probably only watch once, but it was so heartwarming to me. And even seeing how they interacted with their kid and all that, and even like even little things like the a scene of like them having a kid, like phenomenal. And you can kind of see the panic in Andrew's face for some of these things. And it's a really well done movie. One that I strongly, encourage anyone to watch. It's definitely a very unique love tale that, I definitely wasn't expecting it to be the way that it was, but it was just beautiful. So yeah, that was my number 9 on this one.
Lucas.
Okay, my number 9 is another film that I saw this year at Sundance, and it's quite possibly the best performance by an actor this year. And the film is A Real Pain, starring Jesse Eisenberg and Karen Culkin, as is a story about two cousins who travel Poland just to relive their grandparents' heritage. This film, on so many levels, is one of the funniest, dramatic, traumatic family films you can see this year. And Karen Culkin delivers quite possibly the best performance by any actor this year in this film, as he plays a character named Benji, who's just neurotic and who just believes in living his life by the seat of his pants, while his cousin, played by Jesse, is just the one who feels like everything should be structured. And then we get to see this dynamic between them two, as Karen's character is able to have everyone else gravitate towards him while still having some deep-seated pain about the way his life has worked out, the way his family views him, and him not knowing how to get that out. But here we get to see two cousins who feel like brothers as they're just working through family trauma. Like I think this is Jesse Eisenberg's directorial debut. And I think he also wrote this. Like, this film is so good on so many levels, especially since I saw this in January and it managed to, at this point, still stay in my top 10. This is one of the best films you'll see this year. Just again, dealing with family trauma, dealing with how to adapt to a circumstance that you don't see coming, and then when you're in it, you just have to deal with it, because that's part of their trek to Poland that they really have to deal with, is that these family issues come up that neither one of them are really prepared to deal with. But at that moment, they have to deal with it amongst a group of other people who know nothing about their family. And then it feels like those people are picking sides, possibly on who's right and who's wrong. Like it's so layered of a family drama, still with great comedic moments, that it will keep you intrigued. So my number 9 film is A Real Pain.
Yeah, no, that film was amazing.
Yeah.
I normally don't, you know, cut in, but yeah, that was definitely one of the best performances. Well written. I mean, it just seems alive. Like it was so well done.
Yeah.
Um, so my next number 8 film, um, I don't think it has distribution yet. I don't think it's available in any capacity. I think it's coming out in January. Well, actually, you know what? Yeah, it does have distribution. It comes out January 27th, from what I'm looking at. And this film was one of the most unique, it's not even horror, unique, I guess, poltergeist ghost stories I think I've seen in a very long time. And I'm talking about the movie called Presence. Presence, for all intents and purposes, has never been done like this. So the director, not only is he also the DP, so every shot that you see, he is not only directing it, he's shooting it, but is from the lens of the entity itself. Like if you want to call it apparition or the ghost, the movie, every single moment is shot from that angle. So if the ghost is moving through the house, or if the ghost is kind of just staring ominously at somebody, or if the ghost is moving or reacting to somebody else's emotions, you see it from that lens. Never seen anything like it. And the thing that makes this so unique is that every single actor in this has to still be in character. They have to still allow the scene to play out. And it just feels so organic. It's so unique. It is one of my top 10 of this year. That's why I ended up in my number 8. But that's not to say something like A Real Pain wouldn't have ended up somewhere in this top 10 as well. But this was really good film. Highly recommend it when it comes out. Bow, bow, bow.
Yeah. No, my number 8 for this year was Piece by Piece. This was a
Nice.
movie that it was just good. Like everything about this movie was good. Like if you're into music, you'll like this movie. If you're into Legos, you'll like this movie. Um, any like type of music slash hip hop, and not even hip, any music that came from the 2000s, I would willing to bet if you're ever on Jeopardy, just guess that it was like produced by Pharrell Williams, because you're most likely going to be right. Like the amount of music that this man has touched was phenomenal. But to hear his story and everything he did, kind of like how he rose to fame, how he kind of, I don't want to say lost everything because he didn't lose any like everything, but how he kind of rose, he fell and then rose back again was just beautiful. And I think one of the things that I found so neat about this movie was, so when this movie was originally shot, it was obviously shot during COVID, but everything was shot in like with humans, like as if humans were doing it. So this movie technically was created, I think when the director was talking about it, I sat through a panel, I think 3 times is the way that he ended up talking about it, because it was shot live action, then it was animated into like Legos, and then after that, Pharrell had some, like things he wanted to change on it, change some of the music, that like some of his original music, and then it's what we see now. But what I found so interesting was all the characters that were doing this, like these interviews talking about Pharrell and all this, they didn't know that this was going to be a Lego movie. And the only way that Pharrell said that he would do this movie is if they made it into a Lego movie. So just that concept alone is hilarious and was phenomenal. But once it came out that, like this was a Lego movie, it was interesting how some of the characters were asking, well, how am I going to look, or how am I going to be portrayed? And it was just neat. But no, this movie, I mean, I haven't been in a theater in a long time where the entire theater just had the same vibe. like certain songs would come on, and it was like a mini concert in my theater, like when we saw this. And people were singing along. You can see everyone bobbing their head throughout just about the entire movie. But yeah, but this one musically, like visually, like the animation was beautiful throughout this whole movie, even for it being a Lego movie. Like I was very, very impressed. But just the story of Pharrell, and definitely someone who has had such an impact musically in my life, with NERD, the Neptunes, and all, like it was just so cool seeing his story told in such a vibrant way. So this is definitely one that I would, this easily cracked my top 8. I knew this movie was going to be on my list. I just wasn't sure where, but yeah, it ended up on 8. But definitely go check it out.
Nice. Lucas, you're number 8.
All right, my number 8 is it feels like a broken record. My number 8 is another film that I saw at Sundance Film Festival, which is kind of odd that so many films I saw at that festival have made my top 10 list. But this one is quite possibly the best action comedy of the year. And this one is called Thelma, starring June Squibb and Richard Roundtree in his final performance. As it's a story about a grandmother who is scammed out of money over the internet, and she goes on her own one-man mission to recover her funds. This is quite possibly the funniest film of this year, as we just see this old lady showing that age means absolutely nothing, as she is in hot pursuit of the people who stole her money over the internet, just to prove that she can still live and function on her own to her daughter. This film was a pleasant surprise. It's such a joyous, heartwarming film that it just leads to you being happy while you're watching it, and just to see like this happens every day to people. The director who put this film together actually formulated this film because this happened to his grandmother, where she opened up an email and someone tricked her into sending money and she lost her life savings. But here we get to see Thelma be the hero of her own adventure as she just goes on hot pursuit to get it. And then she ends up going to a nursing home, meeting Richard Roundtree, who's an old friend, taking his scooter, and then they go on this adventure together as she tries to find these people who've stolen her money. It feels at times with the intense action of it like a Mission Impossible film, but then it's also a comedy. But then we got to also remember this is a 93-year-old actress playing this part and doing it wonderfully. So my number 8 film of the year is Thelma.
Oh no, did we lose Sam?
Yeah, I'm about to say the same thing.
Life. Another situation. Anyway, we're on number 7 now.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
number 7.
All right, my number 7. What was my number 7? Oh, yeah, this is gonna be on one of y'all's list. I'm not sure whose list is gonna be on, but this film I also saw it TIFF, I believe, and that film is called Conclave. To me, the movie itself conceptually is about it's about a man, and he's kind of like shied away from being able to pray. Like he very much so codependent on other people, and like unfortunately the Pope is about to pass, and so now he has to bring everybody together collectively to kind of manage how this conclave is going to determine who's going to be the next Pope. This film and the way that it was designed, the way that it was shot, the way it was acted, I was engaged the entire time. I watched this film probably like 3 or 4 times at this point. I saw it with my wife last, and she's like, "Man, I don't want to see this." I was like, "I promise you, honey, it's good." She's like, "Wow, this is a good movie." Like it's everything that you don't expect. It's just processed very well. It's written very well, and all the way to the very end, you don't really know how it's going to actually end. But I think that there's a lot of faith building aspects of it. There's a lot of different things of like not just transformation, but honesty and what that actually looks like in the perception standpoint. It's just a really good film. So this Conclave hit my number 7.
Solid film. I'm actually shocked that we haven't hit the same film yet. Because usually I think for the past few years we've always hit at least one by now. But no, my number 7 was The Substance. Um I saw this movie late night and I was not sure what I was expecting, but it glued me to it and I could not stop watching it. Denise Moore did such a phenomenal job. Both the actresses did a phenomenal job in this movie. And this movie, it was just so unique seeing how it portrayed how far and the lengths that people would go to try to be pretty and perfect. And obviously some of the backlash and consequences to it, but the whole premise of it and how you kind of switch between, kind of like your personas will go with, um, was so unique and such a unique feeling over the whole premise of, you're two, but you're one. And what one does to one, it affects the other, and how that, kind of works through and plays out. But this movie was just crazy. Like once and even the way it was, there were some hallway scenes that were just shot so chaotic for me, but it was still like just such greatness, like in the way that they carried themselves and they kind of rummaged through some of like it was so good. But yeah, this one definitely cracked my top 7 this year, and it's one to watch. Like, if you have a queasy stomach, don't watch it, but other than that, this one was phenomenal.
Okay. My numbers, and it is weird that we've not mentioned yet that
Yeah.
we have multiple films on the list because it clearly is, but we just haven't mentioned it yet. But my number 7 film, so at the Chicago Film Festival this year, and this one is The Return, starring Ray Fiennes, who is also in Conclave this year, and Juliette Binoche, as this is a film about Homer's Odyssey, and it takes on the perspective of Homer having PTSD and being terrified to come back home because what he did and having to deal with the ramifications of what he did. This is a film that is so layered and so good just because everyone knows Homer's Odyssey, everyone knows the monsters and the things that you go through with that. But from this perspective, to say, no, we're going to deal with it when he washes up back in Ithaca and everything he has to deal with from that point. Him being terrified to return to his family, him being terrified to return to his kingdom because he led all of his men to slaughter. And he is fearful on what that means and how he would have to deal with it. In turn, his wife is attempting to hold on to the kingdom as she has so many people pursuing her for her hand in marriage. So we get to see three sides of a story here, is because we also get to see the story of their son, of having to deal with a mom who won't move on and a father who isn't present, that he perceives could be dead. And then the father having to deal with not wanting to return, and at the same time, the mom having to deal with longing for her husband, but also trying to hold everything together, knowing that she can't hold out too much longer before she has to remarry. This film is phenomenal. And the last 20 minutes are some of the most brutal work you're going to see in a film. It builds up perfectly to that point. And it's just good to see someone taking a story that everyone knows and giving you a different spin on it, especially since all of a sudden out the blue we getting a bigger director who's actually going to do his own Odyssey story. But I don't think you can do it nearly as good as this because no one's going to think about it from this perspective. Like everyone would go for the fantastical moments of it. Here, they went strictly for the human element of Homer, and that's what made this film so good. So my number 7 film is The Return.
All right, so let's see. We are now closing in, guys. We're almost at the hump.
Yep.
We are
I mean, we
at
would be there if we didn't have 10 honorable mentions, but that's fine. That's fine.
You know what? I'm gonna just shut up. So, my number 6 is actually a film that's already been mentioned already. And I'm not gonna lie, I saw it at TIFF, and I was in the theater, and I was crying like a little child, and that is The Wild Robot. I was in that theater watching it, and I was kind of like, okay, conceptually, like you got a robot, and she's trying to figure out what her purpose is, and it's like, okay, protect this human life. Oh, there is no human life. Okay, so only thing available is animals. I'm like, okay, all the animals are self-sufficient. Got to learn their language. Then she comes upon like this little creature, and by the end of the film, she is more human than any concept of the word human. Like she completely changes her narrative. This is Lupita Nyong'o, Jason Bateman, a star cast. But I think the thing about it is understanding what it means to be a parent and what it actually means to not just change for your children, but to understand how to help elevate them, how to be there for them when you have nothing left to kind of give, or you're not even literally built for it. There's so many life lessons in this that just so amazing. And I was in the theater watching it, and I was like, man, I'm starting to tear up. There's this lady next to me. She had her pen and paper. It was all business professional. She had that paper on the ground, just tears everywhere. She was boohoo crying. And then once she started crying, I started crying. I was like, oh man, I'm done. But this was my number 6, an amazing, to me, the best animated film this year. Not even a question.
Yeah. Nope, I cannot disagree with you on that one. No, my number 6 was just, this is where I go off the rails here, and I just put a fun film here because I thoroughly enjoyed it. Would be Deadpool and Wolverine. Are you gonna get great acting here? Nope. Are you gonna get an amazing, storyline, well written? Nope. But when you talk about a comic book movie and clicking off all the happy check marks that I wanted in a movie and for so long, like this one was for me. Like this one was a film made for me. I thought the action in this was great. The stunts in it, the choreograph, like with the action shots, were done awesome. And just being able to see Hugh Jackman, like back in a Wolverine costume and like the OG Wolverine, like it was amazing. Like Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman just have this really neat relationship, and even throughout this movie, like it had so many unexpected cameos that while watching it, you're just like freaking out. Like to bring back Blade, and like if you haven't seen it, my bad, spoiler alert, but to bring back like Wesley Snipes' Blade and Elektra, like, and then even having Gambit on, like everything in this, like there was just so much in this movie. I still remember like the amount of like cheers and everything that was in, like the theater. Like this was probably the closest that we got to a phenomenal, solid like superhero movie in a while. Because I think Marvel has, and has been missing, and I think DC is going to take advantage of that with Superman, coming out and their lineup. But this to me was exactly what I wanted in a superhero movie, and it was just so good, like just so good. Yeah, so this one, like I said, you're not gonna get great acting, you're not gonna get a foolproof storyline, but you're gonna get superheroes doing superhero things, and I loved it.
Okay, my number 6 film, again, is from what clearly at this point is the greatest film festival ever created, because it's also from the Sundance Film Festival. And this one is Exhibiting Forgiveness. This film absolutely broke me from the moment I saw it. It stars Andre Holland, who plays Terrell in the film. And he's a world-class painter who now has to go back to his hometown and move his mom out. And his mom sets him up with his dad being present, a dad who's not been around him, a dad who in many ways physically abused him and his mom growing up, and him having to learn what forgiveness means and trying to move on with his life from his father. This film is so powerful because, again, it teaches us the most important aspect of it is that forgiveness is not for the person who wants to be forgiven, it's for you. And that's the only way you can move on. And here we see him struggle with it. We see him attempt to build a relationship back with his dad. At the same time, his mom is going through her own issues, him dealing with that, and then him dealing with his family issues, along with being a thriving artist who uses his art to escape reality. And now all of those lines being blurred together, and we get to see him break in so many moments of him trying to hold everything together. Andre Holland here delivers the best performance this year by an actor, hands down. And when I say actor, I don't mean I'm not separating male from female. He delivers the best performance in Exhibiting Forgiveness this year. And this film is just so good. It's again, it's going to be one of those films a lot of people are not going to see, but everyone should see because again, it's the universal language of forgiveness and what that means, and the way this film shows it to the audience. It's some gut wrenching scenes from when he's a kid and dealing with his dad that it's hard to watch. And it's hard to, after you see those films, those scenes, imagine him forgiving this man. But that's what makes this film so powerful because through all of that stuff, you still have to forgive for you to be able to move on. So my number 6 film is Exhibiting Forgiveness.
Oh man, it's getting emotional now. You gotta be careful. All right, so now we are at number 5 officially. So my number 5, I didn't see it at any film festival actually. I really just saw it in December by the luck of the draw. um, and the name of this film is Nosferatu. Nosferatu is actually, man, how do I even put this? I can't recommend it to anyone, but there's levels of this that's just so masterfully done. You have to thank Lucas because I don't think I'd ever have watched anything from Robert Eggers if it wasn't for Lucas. Lucas is like, you gotta see the witch, you gotta see the witch, you gotta see it. I was like, no, I'm scared. I don't want to see it. Leave me alone. And I finally watched it and I was like, man, it messed me up. But the execution was great. And so, it built me up for all the different films he made up until that point. Like me, Lighthouse is one of my favorite films at that time. But this film, I've never seen something done so masterfully from different levels, from the acting and performances. I think that Lily Rose Depp has one of the top acting performances this year. But she's just not. I don't know if she's going to get the accolades for it because of the genre type or whatnot. But she was amazing. Everyone in this was amazing. There's an actor that I can't remember his name, but he plays the person that works directly for Nosferatu. One of the best supporting acting performances this year. But the way that they stylized it, the way they built tension, the way that they did the cinematography, the score, everything about this, to me, this is one of Robert Eggers' best films. But I think the more deeper aspect of it is I don't think I've seen an actual true evil vampire story done like this. Like most vampire stories, you can kind of call it by the numbers, but this was this dark, evil romance. And even when you see the romantic themes in this, like it's just tainted with evil. And I thought that they did it so well, but I just can't recommend it to people. But it was my number 5 official film.
I love it. I completely forgot to add that one to my list. I'm not even gonna lie. No, my number 5 was one that I saw early in the year, and even in my review that I did for it, throwing a plug here on Letterbox. If you're not on it, check it out because it's kind of cool if you review a lot of movies or watch a lot of stuff. But was Civil War. This movie was cinematically so beautifully shot and shows you such a raw, I guess, intense way of showing you about war and all the greatness and terribleness of it. Obviously this movie, like the US kind of splits up, and it's kind of fighting each other, for better lack of terms. But this movie was just done so well, like so incredibly well. Kristen Dunst, I thought, did a wonderful job being like a photographer in this movie, and you're kind of following her, kind of like her lead. Wagner Mora as well, phenomenal job. Like, a lot of the actors that were in this did such a great job. There's still some visuals in this movie that have been like ingrained in my head. Um, there's plenty of sniper scenes in this movie that I love. Um, there's one where they end up killing one of the, and I wouldn't even call it main characters, but one of like the main characters like buddies, and that was one of like the most gut wrenching, kind of scenes that you kind of see real quick. And then even to the very end, when kind of at the end of the day, like the president gets taken over, and you start kind of seeing the life that press people truly have,
Mhm.
where it's not, you almost remove yourself from the situation and you're just trying to capture the information that you need to get, to have it recorded and to see the characters play out the way that they do, and everything play out, and kind of grooming this young photographer who looks up to Kristen Dunst's character, and just seeing how it was done. When I saw this originally, I said from the get-go that this was going to be on, like my top 10. Did I think it was going to be my number 5 movie? No, but
Mm.
it definitely has stuck with me, and it is one of those movies that visually, like, was beautiful. And in
Mm.
everything in this movie, the premise of it and all, kind of having, like, I couldn't imagine the US going through this right now, and yet there's some countries that this is their day to day. And the way that they were able to portray it was just so well done. So this is one that, I completely, loved every piece of it. And I think the writer and the director were both Alex Garland, and I think he did just such a phenomenal job in how this was shot and shown. And I mean, a lot of his, I'm starting to understand why I like a lot of his movies, like Annihilation, Ex Machina, things like that, because those are movies that I've seen, and they kind of stick with me, and they're movies that I love. And this just falls right into that kind of, cycle of, I can continue watching a lot of these films and just know I'm getting quality stuff, like in terms of writing, in terms of like shots. But yeah, this is one that I would say go watch if you haven't watched it, or and if you haven't watched it, shame on you. But this is phenomenal.
See, now I feel bad because, like you said about Nosferatu, this should have been on my top 10 as well. I completely forgot it because I think I saw it at South by Southwest, but thanks for reminding me.
It's so early. You kind of, I mean, I'd still love Civil War. I thought it was a really good movie, but yeah, once you see things early, it kind of throws you off a little bit.
Yeah.
My number 5 film, and I will preface it by saying this, okay? Once you get to the top 5, it's minor little hairs that separate number 5 from number 1. So it can go either way. I've seen this film more times than I've seen any film this year in a very short period of time. I've seen this film multiple times, and I can't stop watching this film. And I try my best to stop watching it, and I never can, because I always get caught up on like it's a line in the film when he says, no wizard that there is or ever was is ever gonna bring me down. Like, I sing that thing all the time. I can't help it at this point. Like, every day I'm singing these songs. My number 5 film is Wicked. This is the best musical adaptation of a play that's ever been done. This is phenomenal. I've seen the play Wicked 4 or 5 times. I've seen the movie 5 times in the last 6 weeks. Like, this movie gives you everything humanly possible that makes old Hollywood great. You get 2 solid performances by actresses. The singing is amazing. John Chu is quite possibly the best director in Hollywood in this type of format. And he does a masterful job of understanding what it means just to let the songs breathe and not trying to rush through things as we get with other musicals because they don't understand what those numbers mean to people. Here, he understood exactly what every song humanly possible meant to the plot, and he adjusted everything to match the tone of the songs so you got those same feels. By the time you get to Defying Gravity in this film, you're gonna be in tears. You can't help it because it's a powerful song that is a battle cry for what it means to be different and what it means to be accepted and not willing to stand for anything unjust to yourself. I can't speak enough about this film. Again, I'm going to watch this film again today because I have to, or at least that song I have to. I have absolutely no choice here. Cynthia Erivo is amazing in it. Ariana Grande is amazing in it. Michelle Yeoh, as the evil person that she is in this film, is freaking phenomenal. Like, this film gives you everything humanly possible you could ever ask from an entertainment standpoint in a film. So my number 5 film is Wicked.
Oh man, it's getting interesting, guys. All right, so now we're down to lucky number 4. All right, so I'm gonna pull mine's up. My number 4, which I cannot believe it fell from my number 1. I just knew this was gonna be my number 1 film, period. Like no matter what. But unfortunately, that's not the case anymore. But it is at my number 4 film. I do think it should probably win Best Picture, but we'll see what happens. But that is Dune Part 2. Everything about this film I love on so many different levels. I actually really loved Dune Part 1, but I kind of felt like it was incomplete, but I knew where it was going to go. What I will say, the distinction between Wicked and Dune is that Wicked on its own, just Part 1 was just masterful. And I hate to make that slight to say this right now, but with Dune Part 2, it's the complete overarching. Like it brings everything full circle. The things and the threads that they set up for the first one, they pay off on so many different levels on the second one. In my personal opinion, a lot of people will say, A Complete Unknown is Timothée Chalamet's best performance this year. I debate that. I think that his performance in transforming into Paul Atreides is one of the most interesting, engaging like feats that he's done. Like, I mean, his frame alone, like it's not like a big frame, but he just walks and talks like a king, and it's so well done and executed. But everything around him, from the design, the choreography, from the acting level around him, the score, everything about this makes that, for me, the best film, if not one of the best films this year. So that ends up in my number 4, but it is not my number 1, which is crazy to say. But yeah, I'm not going to keep gushing about it. If you haven't seen Dune Part 2, highly recommend you go and check it out.
I have not seen Dune Part 2 or 1 or show.
You are missing out. I'm just gonna go.
How dare you? I have not been that triggered. I ain't been that triggered in a minute.
You said it. That's the only reason I commented. Okay, I've not seen any Dune.
Come on. Wait, you haven't seen the first one?
I saw the one in 1984.
Come on, Lucas. Come on, dog. You know what? I'm sorry, Jorge. I'm taking up your time. Go ahead.
No, I'm equally baffled. Wow. Okay. Well, my number 4 was actually Heretic. This movie for me hit in such different ways that I wasn't prepared for and I wasn't ready for. But this movie, Hugh Grant just killed it. Sophia Thatcher killed it. Chloe East killed it. But the thing that I loved about this movie, you were trying to always figure out this cat and mouse throughout the whole film. And right when you think you kind of understand what's happening, it kind of changes up a little bit. And the part that, for me, literally made this film as great as it was for me was as soon as the film ended, it all just clicked for me. And that third act took a completely different meaning and different understanding as soon as and there's not many movies that as soon as it ends, you just kind of sit there and you're just like, what did I just watch? And you instantly want to go back and watch it again. And just to make sure that like what you watched really was what you were thinking and how they, kind of tie everything up at the very end. And when they have that I believe it was a butterfly land on the finger, like I was just blown away with such a simple like detail of something that a character said. I think it was like in the first like 30 or 40 minutes of the movie. Was just spectacular. But the way that Hugh Grant kind of goes about and changes his entire persona. Because whenever we see Hugh Grant, we think of like, this lovable guy. And this was the best way I can put it was like Hugh Grant's like, I don't want to say coming out as evil party, but almost like what Denzel Washington did when he did Training Day. When all these actors who you're used to seeing, like Robin Williams, another one who comes to mind, when you get these actors who are used to just being these good, wholesome guys, and they do a film where it's like the complete opposite, and it's scary how well he does it, and you almost kind of wonder like what type of skeletons he has in his closet to be able to just kind of do this film so much justice in the way that how evil he was and how sinister he was throughout it, especially with these two girls in his house. But yeah, this one cracked my top, like my top four, just because of just how great it was and how as soon as it ended everything made so much sense, but in a way that you wanted to just rewatch the film instantly. So that's why this one made my top four.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment about Heretic. As soon as I got done watching the film, I think I saw it at TIFF. Like, I was instantly talking with it with another cricket for like a whole hour. Like, crap, did it mean that? Like, is this what this really means from a face standpoint? Oh my gosh! But yeah, I agree.
Okay, my number four film is another musical, and it's a film that I saw at the Chicago Film Festival, and that is Amelia Perez.
Mm.
This film here, I went into this film in the dark. I didn't know much about what this film was going to be about because I didn't want to know. I just saw Zoe Saldana on a poster of it, and I said, "Huh, maybe I needed to go into this blind to see what this is." In turn, what I end up seeing is the two best performances by actresses this year, and Carla, who plays Amelia Perez, and Zoe, who plays her lawyer in the film. It's a story about a mob boss who transitions to live his true self, and then him having to deal with the consequences of what that meant to transition with his family. This film was so good. And I didn't know it was a musical even going into it. And you get to the point of knowing it's a musical, and this the emotional reverence of every song and the way every song hits in this film is amazing. Like, while Wicked is a musical that is joyous and just boisterous and brings everything, every bit of joy out of you, Amelia Perez brings every other emotion but joy out of you because you understand the ramifications of what has taken place and the lies that are being told to people. And the song that I think it won the Golden Globe this year for Best Original Song in a Film, performed by Zoe Saldana. In it, once you get to that point of the film, this film takes off and goes so many different places you don't expect. This is possibly the best female driven film I've seen in at least 10 years. Like, women drive this film, and they drive it perfectly. Carla, who will be, in my estimation, and I'll say it now, and if it's not the case, it's a shame. I think she'll be the first trans actress that walks away with an Oscar for Best Actress. She is phenomenal in this film. on so many levels. Like Amelia Perez is a film that at times for people is going to be hard to watch, but it's always good and solid and entertaining. So my number 4 film is Amelia Perez.
Man, another film that could have hit my numbers. Again, this was a stacked year, y'all. I mean, we talked about it briefly, like we were like preparing, like, oh, this is gonna be pretty easy. But like, there's films that haven't even come out yet that were just phenomenal. So I think that's actually a really good
now we're in the home stretch of the top 3.
Yeah,
I know.
Wonder how much are we gonna match on these 3? I doubt it, but you never know.
I know for a fact that this one none of y'all are gonna pick. Well, to be honest, I don't know if y'all have even seen the film, but I'm gonna go ahead and just put it out there. My number 3 film for this year is a film that has not gotten distribution yet, but hopefully will captivate you guys as much as it did me. I think it was the best film at TIFF this year, and I'm talking about Mother Mother. Mother Mother, the concept of this film is basically you have a mother and a son, and they are camel farmers. And essentially, you know, the mother is very strict because they don't have the dad in their life. She's just trying to take care of the son to make sure he's grown to be a good man and also does the right thing. And the young boy, he's ambitious and he goes into town one day and something very terrible happens. And the person that does this terrible act to her son, they've given her 3 options. You can have him killed, you can have him deported to prison, or, you know, we can go and flip this another way and we can get something back for you financially. She says, I don't want any of those 3. He's going to give me a life debt. He's going to be for me what she tried to take away from me for a life. And I've never seen anything like this. Like this actress that you see right here on screen, this is her first performance. And she crushes it. It breaks your heart on so many different levels. And I think the thing about it, there's impacts on forgiveness, on anger, on process, on tradition. But then the other thing about it is hatred as well, and what that actually does, what that can do to a person. But I really think that this, when it comes out, will be looked at as one of the best foreign films this year, and it should be the best film going into next year. Much like another film that happened last year, and me and Lucas were doing, which was Sing Sing, which was very top of our list, I think, last year. But hopefully, Mother Mother gets his just rewards because it was phenomenal. That is my number 3.
Well, my number 3 was already said today, so wah wah. But it was Dune 2, which
Lucas.
I know Lucas's list, so that's cool. But no, Dune 2, I thought was when you talk about creating a world and just a cinematic masterpiece. This movie, I mean, everybody I thought killed it. Like Timothée Chalamet killed it, Zendaya killed it. Florence Pugh was just breathtaking in this movie. Like every single person, like Austin Butler, Dave Bautista, like all their characters were just so well done. This massive epic, which I am shocked that Lucas hasn't seen, was just,
I'm offended.
Yeah, it was so amazing. Like that's the easiest way I can put it. When and this final fight scene here as well was so well done. But this is just one of those movies that once you saw the first one that Lucas didn't see, not throwing more shade at him, but once you saw like the first one and you saw how grand it all was, I was almost a little bit afraid for part 2 to see if they were going to be able to keep up with the grandness and with the storyline. And, you know, the first movie had Zendaya in it for like 3.2 seconds, and seeing how they were going to use her in this movie. And when you see it all play out, you're just like, I get it. Like they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly how they were moving throughout this whole movie. They knew exactly how to tell this story. And I'm not a super huge, like sci-fi person by any stretch of the imagination, but this movie was spectacular. In terms of like an epic, action sci-fi movie, this is it. Like this movie has it all. But yeah, this one, cracked my top 3 this year. I was blown away by this, and Lucas, you should definitely watch this. I'll leave it at that.
At the very least, do a watch party with your boys. Let's just watch it together. You and us.
So boring.
Just us.
It's so boring.
Just us watching it. Just us watching it together. We ain't got to record it. Like, let's just watch it with the commentary.
They're dressed like the Kardashians present sci-fi. Like, I don't want to watch it.
I know. Just us, just your boys. Let's watch it together. Anyway, what's your number 3?
The last time you tried to watch a movie with me that I did not want to watch was Man of Steel, and you refused to release exactly how I treated that movie.
How about this? I will release that if you watch those 2 movies with me. I will release that the day of. If you watch,
but that's like 8 hours of my time. Aren't these movies like 2 hours and 30 minutes long?
2 hours and 40. Yeah, but who's counting? Who's counting?
Oh my god!
Come on, man. We do one day and then do another.
They're in sand for 2.5 hours.
No.
Oh my god!
Not in sand.
We'll have intermissions. Don't worry.
Right. And then alcohol will be involved. Anyway, what's your number 3, man?
My number 3 film has also already been mentioned, and my number 3 film is Conclave. I was intrigued by this film the moment I heard about it, and I think it was before we went to TIFF, and I wasn't able to see it at TIFF, and I ended up seeing it later on, and I was just as captivated and blown away by it as just the story of when the Pope passes away, and then what happens in the selection process into a next Pope. And then we see the politics behind the scenes. We see how everyone, we see how cutthroat it is to attempt to become Pope, and what everybody wants to do and position themselves. And in the middle of it, you have Ralph Fiennes' character, who has questioned his own faith, who's questioned and having an issue with prayer, who attempted to step down and wasn't allowed to, because, as he puts it in the film, that the Pope knew he was going to pass, and he knew he wanted him to lead this conclave because of his doubts. Like, that is such a powerful message that at times, even if you don't see it, someone else sees it for you, and they know that you can be great at something even when you can't get out your own way. Like, this film is powerful on so many levels, and it's so cutthroat. This has at least 4 performances in this film that can be Oscar nominated at any given time. Every actor, Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow, Ralph Fiennes, the other actor, I'm forgetting his name right, who plays the African guy who's up for Pope. Like, I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. So many of them put together masterful performances in this film. But at the entire time of it, you kind of lose track that you're just watching a vote, because the intensity that everything is shot with, it feels like possibly the best thriller you can ever watch, when all they're doing is doing votes. But you get to see the behind the scenes mechanics of it. We get to see racism. Mm-hmm. We get to see problems with people want to revert back to 60 to 80 years ago on the way the Catholic Church was viewed, and how people are fighting against that. Like, it's so many different things here that make this film so powerful. But Ralph Fiennes here in this lead role is masterful in it. So my number 3 film is Conclave.
All right. Now we're down to number 2 officially.
This is gonna be interesting. Dune ain't gonna be on my list. So I'm wondering, like, where else would we possibly match at? One of you two are gonna have Wicked somewhere in your list up here. Not gonna be surprised.
Okay, so
Or is it Mufasa? Who has Mufasa on their list?
You know what? Don't do that. Don't do that. We're not.
You
know
don't
what?
understand on my brother. I don't understand on my brother.
Anyway, all right. So these guys are gonna be mad at me, but my number 2 is this film and this film. It's tied. This tied. It's an undisputed number 1, but this is my number 2 is Wicked and Sing Sing. Wicked and Sing. I'm so sorry. Look, first off, Wicked, everything that Lucas said, I ditto that. Like, I could watch this movie over and over. The only thing I cannot do with this movie, I cannot get my wife to watch this movie. She will refuse to watch it for whatever reason, but she just won't watch it. I want her to watch it. I want her to experience this one, but she won't. It's fine. But I love it. Cynthia Erivo's performance was phenomenal. The way they handled the set design, choreography, everything about this, the framing of it, I think that from a musical standpoint, there's other films that have come out that are musicals the past 5 to 10 years wanted to try to achieve what John did with this film. This was masterfully done. Easily, it could be my number 1, but it just ain't. It's fine. Then Sing Sing is still from last year was my number 1, and it's still my number 2. Like, it's undeniable. Like, Coleman Domingo to me is one of the best performances still in the past 2 years, which is technically true. And I think that everything about this film, the dynamics of it, what it actually truly means, and the gravitas of it, and this is actual lives. Like, these are people's actual lives. They are reacting and interacting with things that they've actually gone through. If you've not watched Sing Sing, you are doing yourself a disservice. Easily one of the best films this year, if not the best film this year. But yeah, without going into too much detail, unfortunately, I have a tie for my number 2. So again, these guys are gonna be mad. I'm like, where'd this come from, Sam? What are you doing? What kind of foolishness is this? I'll take the L. I apologize. It's just the fact.
This is terrible. I'm just gonna throw it out there now.
Mercy made us have 5 honorable mentions.
Yeah, Sam had 2 at number 2 lined up. Here I go thinking we were not going to match on anything this year. And I was so certain because this movie was on both of y'all's list last year because I didn't get to see it until this year. But my number 2 was Sing Sing. This movie, everything Sam said is spot on. And if you look at our review last year when both you guys had, I believe, Sing Sing on your list, Coleman Domingo I understand what you guys saw last year and how you guys felt. I got to experience that recently, and when I saw this movie, it broke me. I think there's so many parts in this movie that are just phenomenal. There's a hug that happens in this movie, and it's at near the end, and when you see these 2 men embrace, you feel that hug, like you feel that embrace, you feel this overcoming joy that you don't get to experience in movies often. And you see, and I will agree, like Coleman Domingo, his acting was so impressive in this movie, and you see this man go from the highs of highs to the lows of lows, and how he's able to mentally battle some of his own demons, and it is phenomenal. Like, he does such a phenomenal job, and I feel because of some of these other big movies, this movie kind of in a weird way slid under the radar a little bit. And I think because so many critics saw this last year, because I think last year this was at TIFF, if I recall correctly. I think because so many critics saw this at TIFF, like, they're not giving it the respect that I feel it deserves this year. In terms of just the story and and just the acting in this. But yeah, this one for me, like this movie broke me in ways that I was not prepared for, and just the way that they were able to tell these stories and little things like, you know, Coleman Domingo looks, you know, at this other character at one point when they're talking, they're like, you know, if it's a skinny envelope, like you're good, and if it's a fat envelope, you know, like it's not good for you. And you see that play out in the movie, and you're just like you're broken for these characters and for things that are happening. So yeah, this movie got me, and yeah, this was a must watch if you haven't seen it.
Okay, Lucas, what's your number two?
My number two film is amazingly a film that's not been mentioned on anyone's list so far. It is a film that is the best musical biopic I've ever seen. And that is Better Man, as is the story of Robbie Williams. I remember when I went to go see this, and I saw it at Chicago International Film Festival. And before the film, they played a clip of Robbie with the director, and the director told Robbie, like, your energy is you have such manic energy. It's like you're a monkey. And Robbie said, okay, let's go with it. And he decided to CGI himself as a monkey for the entire film. And while it feels so gimmicky that he would actually do that, once you get into the movie, once you get into all the emotional aspects of it, you kind of lose sight that he's a monkey in the film, and you kind of understand why that decision was made. This film is so emotional because Robbie Williams' story, for a lot of people, especially in America, we don't know just how huge of a star he is. But even during the course of the film, when they talk about him in the mid 2000s signing an $85 million contract, should tell you just how big of a star he was at that point in time in his career and how big of a star he is to this day. And we get to see someone battling their demons from the time that they were little up until the height of their fame and not knowing how to deal with any of it. Like we get to see him go through so many ups and downs, his drug addiction, his emotional abuse as it comes to the way his father treated him. That his father wanted to be a star and his father latched on to him after abandoning him in the first place. Like we get to see so many different elements of what made this amazing musician and what made him so successful in his life. But at the same time, like multiple times during the film, they have it where he's performing on stage and he would look out in the audience and he would see versions of himself that wanted to kill him. And that just shows just how manic he was, how depressed he was, how unworthy at times he felt his own life was to live. Like it's they did an amazing job of never sugarcoating exactly who Robbie was. And I think that comes with having to make a film like this from an artist who's 100% honest with themselves. So you get to see the overdose scenes. You get to see all of these tragic moments he had in his life. You get to see his jealousy rage through as he had a girlfriend who became more famous than him at one point in time, and he didn't know how to deal with it. Like you get to see all these different elements of Robbie Williams, and then you get to see the triumph at the end because he managed to get out of everything and live an amazing life and understand even when he was going through it, he fully understood just how lucky he was to even have a minuscule amount of the fame that he did. This is a powerful film. Again, this is also directed by the guy who did Bohemian Rhapsody, but Bohemian Rhapsody doesn't compare to this film. This is the best musical biopic ever made at this point. So my number two film is Better Man.
Mm.
We're on the home stretch, guys. Number one. Let's go ahead
All
and
right.
get right
So,
into it.
what are the chances that this number one is going to match anything on anyone else's list? I know my number one won't, but
Mine won't.
so the only one is Sam. That's what we're saying. Sam is the only possibility.
If you say Moana 2, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen.
Mufasa. I know it is.
I'm done with y'all. Right? My number one film. it's so weird how I got to actually see that film because I wasn't at the festival when I saw it, and I got to see it secondhand, and I watched it and I was like, man, this hurt. Like I felt everything about this. And then I watched it again finally, in a screener link, and then later on in a theater, and I was able to talk with the director and whatnot. And I truly knew from the second time I watched it that was my number one film. And it's already been mentioned here, and it's Exhibiting Forgiveness. Exhibiting Forgiveness still, for me, is my best film this year on so many different levels. I emotionally resonate with this film. As Lucas kind of identified, I think that Andre Hollard absolutely plays one of the best performances this year. But even crazier, John Earl, who plays the role of the father, equally could be in that same category. Anjanou Ellis Taylor, she was in 3 different films this year. She was in Deliverance, she was in Nickel Boys, she was amazing in Nickel Boys, good in Deliverance. To me, and this was better. There's a scene in this film, takes place on the train track, that scene to me is the best defining scene that I've seen that felt real. And I think that the movie itself is framed to be real. It's meant for you to actually talk about it after the fact. And the aspects of forgiveness in and of itself, it's not a comfortable thing. But what is the cost if you don't do it? And this movie tackles both sides of that. And it's so resonant yet vulnerable. And it is my favorite and best film this year. I have a favorites list. I have movies like I don't know, Monkey Man. I thought was dope. I really enjoyed Monkey Man. Like I loved Alien Romulus. I loved The Life of Chuck. They ain't came out yet. I love Challengers. But this film is not only the best film to me, but it is my favorite film as well that came out in 2024. So yeah.
Jeez. Well, mine was already said too, so this is gonna be fun. But mine was Wicked. And I didn't even want to put it up there, but it the more I thought about it, this movie is the one that I've probably, even though I've had an entire year, I've probably seen the most times. There's something about this movie, and I came into it the complete opposite of you, Lucas, where I've never seen it. I've never seen the play. I knew nothing about this movie. I didn't even know that this was going to be a 2-part movie. So when I left the theater, I was a little pissed the first time I saw this because I was like, hold up, I don't even know what happens here. But this movie just, you get 2 powerful women, just leading the way. You get a phenomenal story. The more I start learning about the movie, and the more obviously I've heard just even having the callback to the original, Wicked Witch of the East and the Good Witch and all that stuff, like being in here, what's her name, Adele Menzel and Christian, oh my God, what's her last name? I don't remember her last name, but anywho, but having them be a part of this, like just being able to have that callback in the movie, but even removing that aside, like just the music alone in this movie was phenomenal. Like that last piece was like Defying Gravity was unheard of good. I was not expecting this movie to be as great as it was. And I know I talk about Dune 2 being this like cinematic masterpiece and all that. This movie was a cinematic masterpiece. When I found out that that one scene in the beginning where you see like all those flowers, like they legit planted millions of tulips and that wasn't CGI. Like it shows you the amount of detail that they put into something so small that you only see for a short amount of time, but how much they poured into this movie to make it seem so grand. When you look at all the houses and everything that they built these things, like it wasn't, all of this wasn't just CGI magic, that you see in other movies, but this movie was spectacular. And even the simple things like characters who you won't expect to be as phenomenal or as all, like they were all good. Like Michelle Yeoh was phenomenal. Jeff Goldblum as to the Wizard of Oz. Like you kind of go through this list of like the who's of all these actors and how great they do. And it's phenomenal. Like just kind of seeing it, and then I still remember talking about this movie after it came out, and I think it was with Sam, with you, and with Mike, and Mike was kind of going into like, this theories of it and how some of the characters become, these other characters, and just that alone got me going down this rabbit hole of how phenomenal this movie truly is and how excited I am for part 2 of this movie. So for me, Wicked was my top movie of the year. So I totally get the whole watching it as much as you have, Lucas, because it's that good.
Maybe y'all can convince my wife to watch it.
Hey,
Good
I
luck.
mean, just tell. Hey, if I need to, I let her know because I kind of think I know why she does not want to watch it. But I can talk to her. I'd be like, "Hey, trust me, it's nothing of what you think it's going to be." And I can't wait for y'all to see part 2 because I've seen the play, so I know how this ends, and I know where this story goes. And if you think part 1 is great, you're not going to see it coming on what happens in part 2. By the time you get to part 2, you'll never look at Wizard of Oz the same again. And then a really fun fact about Wicked part 1, because I know a lot of people did not catch it. You do know the house that fell on the Wicked Witch of the East, which is her crippled sister in real life, is part of the statue that they burn at the beginning of the Wicked Witch. So if you look off to the side, you see remnants of Dorothy's house, and they've taken those remnants and built the Wicked Witch at the beginning of the film when they burned the Wicked Witch because the Wicked Witch is dead.
What?
Because it all plays into the Wizard of Oz.
I didn't even notice that was part of the house.
Yeah.
There we go. Gonna have to watch it again now.
Thanks, Lucas. All right, what's your number 1, dude?
So my number 1 film is a film that came out in 2023, and I didn't get a chance to see it at South by Southwest when it dropped, and I ended up seeing it this February. And it's very rare for me for a horror movie to ever be this high on my list. But my number 1 film is Late Night with the Devil.
Oh, wow.
This film is so phenomenal. It catches you off guard because it's a mockumentary type of film where it deals with a talk show host in the 70s as he's battling Johnny Carson for the lead in television. And as his ratings start to dwindle, he starts doing experimental things to get people's attention. One of them is he brings on this girl who's supposed to be possessed. And him thinking it's just a joke. He brings on someone who's there to debunk her being possessed also. And then from there, all chaos erupts. But what separates Late Night of the Devil from anything else, this is possibly the best written film of the year. Like every bit of dialogue feels real. The performance, especially David's performance as the main host here, feels real. The horror elements is the reason I can't recommend this to a lot of people, because if you are a person who is very spiritual, this stuff feels way too real, and it can hit you way too hard than it would in normal films. They do a masterful job at practical effects throughout this film, as it's about testing not only your faith, but testing your belief system and seeing if your eyes are actually something you can believe when you see things. It's so many different elements of this film that are masterful. It catches you completely off guard. Like I've not seen a semi-possession horror film ever done this well before. And it's because instead of focusing on the jump scare elements, they literally focus on the writing of it to make sure every part and every element felt real. There are commercial breaks during this film because it's supposed to be a mockumentary segued behind late night show. This film is amazing. The point that Shudder was able to pick this up after South by Southwest in 2023 and then release it, and this is now still the best reviewed horror film of the year, but it's one of the best reviewed films of the year. This is a film that I think universally people accept, like it's gone beyond of what just a horror movie can be. Like, this is a masterful film put together here. So my number one film 2024 is Late Night with the Devil.
Wow. We did that, guys. We got through it. That was insane. I mean, I want to harp on it that this was a very stacked year.
Yeah.
2024. It was a lot of films. We saw, again, there's still some films that you guys have not, that's not available to you guys that we've seen. I think The Life of Chuck is is an example. Like, I don't even know when that's going to get distribution.
Santosh, which I saw at the Chicago Film Festival, and I don't do foreign films at all. And it was on the short list, and I think it's still on the short list this year to possibly be nominated for Best International Film at the Oscars. Phenomenal. My goodness. And both of them will tell you, if you have subtitles, I'm not doing your film. That's my rule. I said for Emily, once Emily Perez broke through that rule, I gave the next film a chance, and that next film was just as masterfully put together. But it couldn't even make my top 10. Like, it was so hard because, again, it's so many films that came out this year. Piece by Piece, at one point in time, was in my top 10. And then I started thinking everything else, and then I slowly had to move it out. But it's still a phenomenal music documentary that you don't get to see every day. Like, that's what makes this, that's what made this year so difficult, is that it's so many films that came out that are, unfortunately, a lot of them are under the radar that a lot of people won't get to see.
Yeah, because like Civil War and a Real Pain are so good, and they just didn't make my list, unfortunately. And kind of like a film like Nosferatu, some people just haven't even seen it yet, and I don't know if they actually will. And I think that even the debut for A Better Man, it debuted really low, because I think what was the film that's competing with today? But it's just unfortunate.
It's debut low because it's Robbie Williams is not an American name,
right?
Like, but again, this is a film that played in every film festival and got rave reviews at every film festival. But again, it's such a stacked year. It's going to be hard for a lot of these films to get attention. But that's what makes it important to do these type of top 10 lists where you get to talk about the films that impacted you the most.
Yeah,
because we don't care about box office. I don't care about what movies made. I care way more about if the movies are entertaining.
Yeah,
like as long as you're entertaining or you're good, because some movies are not entertaining, but they are extremely good that you sit through. Like, that's the most important element of this all.
Yeah. Did Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes come out this year?
Yeah, it did.
Dang.
I like that movie.
Yeah, that wasn't on anyone's list. That movie was good. I think this kind of goes to show all three of us saw a crap ton of movies this year, and there were only 3 movies that we mentioned more than once in this whole list.
Okay.
That's including the 18 honorable mentions that we had. So, I mean, when you look at it
like your number 2 didn't make anyone's list but mine, and that movie
was spectacular. Yeah,
phenomenal movie.
I think that goes to show you how stacked this year was when it came to movies.
Yeah. But no, so you guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed our top 10 films of 2024. We will try our best to try to cover the Oscars and see what that's going to look like. If you guys are interested in our predictions or anything like that, as far as what we're thinking, let us know.
Perez is going to walk away with every award. I'm letting y'all know now. Deal with it. If you don't like it, deal with it.
Over the Brutalist.
Amelia Perez is a story about a mob boss who transitions and then decides, after transitioning and giving up his family, he wants his family back, and he will lie to them to get it. I'm not gonna say what I want to say about the Brutalist, because I don't think anyone is prepared for those statements. But Adrian Broder is a 2-time Holocaust survivor. I don't need to see that again. I'm great. Holocaust movies are with slave movies now. You can't do one every year and then it's expected to have the same impact.
So who do you think is going to be the best actor then? Who's going to walk away with the best actor?
Who should it be?
Well, we know who it should be. We know who it should be.
It should be Ray for Conclave. Right. He's phenomenal in Conclave.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not saying the reason why. But you should know the actor. Because I just said he's a 2-time Holocaust survivor. So, no. They'll try to, I'm not going to say why, though. Just going to leave that blank for everyone there to figure it out on their own. But you can figure it out why he would win.
Yeah.
He should not win in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Hell, he barely should be nominated for that role. If we're being honest, if they went by best performance by a male, Andre Holland would be number 1. But we know they're not going to do that because he's black. So
I mean, but Coleman's up there. Well, he's going to get nominated.
Yeah.
But
I
if every forgiveness didn't get good
Sing Sing's momentum was last year.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Everyone saw it last year at TIFF. It blew everybody away at TIFF. And Searchlight waited a year to release it.
Yeah.
You can't do that to that type of film. You need to ride the momentum of it. And they should have rode that momentum until last Oscar season, and they didn't do it.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see, guys. Jorge, because you got another channel, I wanted you to plug your other channel.
Oh, awesome, man. Yeah, no. So obviously you can find me here always on TeamJVS, but then I also have Also Fast Reviews, which I am kicking off on 2025, trying to bump that up a little bit more. I'll be doing reviews there, also on Instagram. I'll be doing a lot of Spanish reviews and also English reviews, but just trying to focus a little bit more. I think I noticed this year more than anything, just through all the movies that I was seeing, just the love that I got through a lot of short films and then a lot of international films. So I think I'm going to be focusing a lot on those type of films and just trying to just kind of share stuff that you wouldn't normally see, and hopefully get Lucas to watch, more subtitle films here and there. But all joking aside, but yeah, if you guys want to subscribe to it, I'll be posting stuff ever so often there, trying to kind of mimic everything that we're doing here on Team JVS. But yeah, that's going to be the new hotness for me as well.
Yes, sir. Well, guys, we're going to go. Thank you guys so much for watching our top 10 films of 2024. This has been dope. And gentlemen, peace, everybody.
Peace.
Doo-doo-doo.
Filing out the top of I can see the skyline, 50 mile radius on my timeline. Ain't nothing on my mind. Oh Lord.